What's up, people, and welcome back to Religion Camp. My name is Mark Gagnon, and thank you for joining me in my tent where every single week we explore the most interesting, fascinating, controversial stories from every religion from all time, forever, and always. Yes, this is my attempt to understand all religions. And so far, it's going pretty good, but there's a lot of stuff to cover, okay? Like I always say on this show, I don't think you can understand a people without understanding the God they worship. And in my attempt to connect with all of humanity that has ever existed in the past or that will ever come in the future, I need to understand what's going on in their hearts and in their souls. And I have another soul in this room, my friend Christos. What's up?
What's going on, Mark?
Dude, today we are talking about the one and the only Shayatin. He's known by many voices, the adversary, but in the Quran, he's referred to as Iblis. I'm pronouncing that correctly, right?
Sure.
Now, look, I don't speak Arabic. I was not raised in a Muslim household. I didn't really have many Muslim friends until I went to college. So I just want to preface this by saying I'm not an expert. I just like to do research. My friends and I will collaborate on a bunch of different research topics, and then we try to figure out what it all means. So in the event that I get anything wrong here or I miss anything, please don't hesitate to drop a comment, and maybe people in the comments will be more informed, but please just keep it diplomatic. But yeah, I just try to understand everything that's going on, and Islam is no different. I'll be honest, a lot of Muslims are trying to get me to revert. I've been getting a lot of comments. People are trying to get me to revert, which I love. That is one of the best branding things that Islam has, is the revert. I think it's so good. Being like, yeah, because most religions you convert, right? You convert to Christianity, you convert to Hinduism. Islam, you revert. Because all mankind is already Muslim, you just don't know it. Wallahi. That's what they say. Which is it's just good branding. Just on its face. It's just like a solid brand. Anyway, maybe it's the truth. I mean, that's what Islam means. It just means to submit to Allah, the one and only God. That is the idea in Islam. So when you revert, that's all it means. That's what a Muslim is. It's just one that submits. And there is one that didn't submit, or did he? He's known by Iblis, okay? He's the hidden voice that whispers evil thoughts. He's the master of the lies, source of all bitterness. And today we're just going to figure out what exactly this means to Muslims. How do they view the incarnation of evil, the adversary, the wicked one? And how is it different than Christians and what Christians do? Because Christians, we got Satan, but there's some differences, and we'll explain that. Christians often picture Satan as like this rebel angel who fights against heaven and tries to steal, God's power over people. And, he's very prideful, which there's some, there's definitely some overlap with that. But in Islam, the evil one works in a sneakier way. He kind of hides in the background while he kind of tricks people and leads them towards sin. And for hundreds of years, religious experts and theologians and faith teachers have all tried to understand what this evil being represents and what human beings today can learn from this story. So Muslims will call him Shayatin, literally meaning the devil. Another name is Al-Adu, basically meaning the enemy or the adversary, which that's where Satan comes from as well, is this Hebrew word for Satan. However, the Quran uses a specific name, Iblis. Now, Iblis appears exactly 11 times in the Quran, making him one of the most frequently mentioned supernatural beings besides, angels and, Allah himself. And each mention serves a specific purpose in building the complete picture of the spiritual struggle that humanity faces. So Islamic scholars have spent centuries analyzing each appearance and finding layers of meaning that continue to generate new insights about, the problem of evil. What's up, people? Let's take a break really quick because I want to talk to the fellas. Let me ask you something. Are you stuck? Do you feel like you're struggling with work or relationships or maybe your marriage, or just feeling like you're not like the dude you want to be? You ever just, thinking to yourself, like, man, I should be farther along right now. I just get caught in these cycles where I just kind of lose self-control. Well, here's the thing that nobody likes to admit. It is possible that porn might be part of the problem. Now, yes, I know, I said the P word. Now, look, I don't want to be overly moralistic here, okay? But if you're someone that struggles with pornography, and research has shown that regular porn users actually leaves men feeling more anxious and less connected and ironically less satisfied, and then it creates a cycle that then you got to be a little secretive about, and you tell yourself like, oh, I'll quit, and then you come back to the same cycle, and now you're in a trap. Well, that's where Relay comes in. Relay is a therapist-backed app with actual clinicians designed to help men quit pornography and actually feel better and get control of their lives. And the difference with Relay is that you're not doing it alone. With Relay, you basically join a small group of guys that are kind of on the same road. They're sharing accountability and encouragement and actual tools to help when triggers hit and you're feeling, anxious or alone. Relay helps you feel a little more connected. And you can stay totally anonymous, but for the first time, you're not going to be in this battle alone. I mean, think of it like a gym membership, but with your brain and for your habits and for the future of your relationship maybe, right? Thousands of men and their families are already seeing some change because the men in their lives are a little bit less stuck. So if you're feeling stuck, check out Relay. Don't wait another month to be the man that you want to be today, and you can break the cycle with Relay. So go ahead and use the code GAGNON, GAGNON, for a 7-day free trial if you feel like this thing has just got a grip on you that you're not able to let go. That is join Relay, JOIN, Relay, RELAY.app, app/camp, and use the code GAGNON for a 7-day free trial. Don't put it off. Be the man you're supposed to be today. Now let's get back to the show. What kind of being is this Iblis? How did he come to exist? What drives the behavior? Why does he work so hard to make people do evil things? Islam includes, many different cultures and beliefs, right? Nearly 2 billion people practice this faith around the world. And almost all Muslims agree that Iblis is a destructive power. At least that's what he represents. He attracts people who already want to sin and he pulls them towards hell. And this evil being encourages bad behavior in people that he can fool and, especially causing them to become, prideful or jealous or greedy and hateful. Islamic teaching says he can become invisible or look like any person, except he cannot take the form of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He appears in people's dreams or enters their bodies like a sickness. Muslims also believe he tries to ruin their prayers by making them forget whether they already prayed or causing them to mix up their words or make them stumble. And these 7 deadly influences form what Islamic theologians call major sins. So medieval Islamic scholars wrote extensive letters and treatises on how Iblis exploits each of these human weaknesses, developing a sophisticated understanding of psychology and moral understanding centuries before modern psychology even really emerged. I mean, they created detailed maps of, how pride will lead to rebellion and how envy can corrupt a relationship or how greed can destroy your spiritual journey, all sorts of stuff. And some of the most famous tricks from Iblis involve quietly suggesting sinful ideas to anyone willing to listen. Arabic speakers even have a special word for these evil whispers, waswasa, which actually sounds like whispering. And classical Islamic psychology developed these theories of how waswasa operates on the human mind. According to this understanding, Iblis cannot directly control human thoughts or control human actions. He can just place suggestions in the mind that feel like personal ideas. And the ability to recognize and resist these whispers becomes a crucial skill in the spiritual development of the Muslim. So some scholars describe different kinds of whispers. Some will target emotions or reasoning or distort your memory. And one story told by the Prophet shows how far Iblis will go to interrupt people's prayers. A man came to the Prophet because he had overslept and missed his morning prayer, and the Prophet explained that Satan had potentially urinated in the man's ears. This didn't mean that the Prophet thought literally Satan had done this act. Instead, he was using this image to show that, missing prayer happens because of Satan's influence, not just regular oversleeping. Now, most Muslims understand this story as, symbolic, not literal, but still the idea remains. This hadith illustrates an important principle in Islamic theology called dual causation. So while events might have a natural cause, like fatigue, causing oversleeping, they also have spiritual dimensions that believers must also consider. So this approach allows Muslims to address, the practical as well as the spiritual aspects of, these daily challenges. So setting alarms for prayer while also seeking divine protection from these types of distractions. Iblis also controls smaller evil things or beings called Shayatin. These creatures don't look like the red-skinned horned monsters with a stick that you'll see in a movie or something. The Quran clearly states that Shayatin can be human or jinn. Basically, jinn is You can think like a magical beings that can, choose to be good or evil. So it's not like it's almost like demons and angels, sort of. That's kind of the best analogy for, for Christians. Islamic belief doesn't treat devils like Shayatin as completely separate creatures. Instead, humans and jinn become devilish when they oppose Islamic teaching. So classical Islamic demonology describes this complex hierarchy of evil spirits with specialized functions, very similar to Christianity and like Christian grimoires. So some Shayatin focus on disrupting worship, and others try to create marital problems, and others try to corrupt a business dealing or cause greed. And this sort of systematic understanding really helped Islamic scholars develop these targeted spiritual remedies for different types of temptation. So the concept that humans can become devilish also has some implication for Islamic social life. So it can suggest that evil isn't limited to these supernatural beings, but can also manifest through human institutions or governments or social systems that oppose this type of divine guidance from Allah. Now, this theological position has obviously, influenced like the Muslim world and its approaches to social reform and oftentimes political resistance throughout history. And many Muslims will show their faith by speaking publicly against Iblis and refusing to follow him. They do this through a specific prayer. And again, my Arabic is not perfect. This prayer is called ta'awud, which they say before reading the Quran or beginning like important work. And the prayer basically translates to, I seek refuge in God from the devil. Pretty simple, but very clear and effective. Muslims also reject Iblis during the Hajj, and this is basically a pilgrimage that every Muslim should take at least once in their lifetime, if possible, where they go to Mecca in Saudi Arabia. And during this trip, pilgrims perform a ceremony known as stoning the devil, where they actually throw rocks at specific walls in a place known as the Valley of Mina. Now, this ritual remembers a story about the prophet Abraham, also peace to him, and Islamic tradition teaches us that when Abraham prepared to sacrifice his son Ishmael, Iblis appeared and tried to convince him not to obey God's command. But Abraham refused to listen. Every time Iblis appeared, Abraham would throw stones at him until the evil being sank into the ground and disappeared. Now, in Christianity, we understand a very similar story where Abraham is going to kill his son Isaac. In the Quran, it's never specified which son, but according to Islamic tradition, they assume that it is Abraham's other son, Ishmael, which is just an Abrahamic distinction between our faiths. Now, they continue to do this. You can see videos of Muslims during the Hajj where they will throw these stones, and there's many people that gather around and then they participate in this ritual. Now, the full Arabic phrase for ta'awud is a'ahud billaha min ash-shaytan rajim. Now, again, I don't speak perfect Arabic, but that was my best. And this carries a deep theological significance. By reciting it, Muslims basically acknowledge, one, that evil exists. Human beings are vulnerable to evil and the influence of evil, and that God has the power to protect against evil, and that by seeking divine protection, you are basically submitting to Allah, and it is both necessary and effective. So it does a bunch of things in just a few short words. Now, the stoning ritual involves 3 pillars representing the 3 occasions that Iblis attempted to dissuade Abraham from sacrificing his son. Pilgrims throw 7 stones at each pillar over 3 days, totaling 63 stones per person. And millions of people will participate in this annually. We did an entire episode on the Kaaba and on the Hajj, so you can check those out if you want to understand the logistics that go into such a massive religious gathering. But literally millions of people will gather to throw these stones, and this represents one of the largest, basically collective religious acts against Satan and the rejection of Satan. Now, this ritual creates a powerful communal experience of rejecting evil, as pilgrims from every nation and race and social class participate together in this symbolic defeat.